You come back down from Scotland, obviously, after leaving Hamilton, I think it was, to Preston. How come you decided to leave? Obviously, being a Scotsman, you were back at your home, and then you decided to come back to England.
Well, I had chosen to go back to Scotland because my son was getting born, and I wanted him to be born in Scotland, and I wanted to go back and play in Scotland. And Preston had come in for me, and they had a really good scout who's still around, a guy called Glenn Burnell, and he came up to watch me, said we were signed for Preston. And I thought, I don't know if I want to go back south. But anyway, I went down to watch a friendly game, and they were playing Wigan, and John Beck was the manager. At that time, John had a sort of bad reputation. And I watched the game, and after I came away from it, I said, oh, there's no way I'm signing for Preston. And that's why I ended up at Hamilton at the time. And I didn't do so well at Hamilton. I was only there for a month or so, 6 weeks, and it didn't go right. Preston were still there and said, would you still think about it? And I was able to get out of Hamilton and go to Preston, and that was really, it was the making of me, and it was great for that point of view. And I came back south, and I've got to say, from there it went really well.
And then obviously during that time you were there as a player, you won promotion from the 3rd division at the end of the 95-96 season. How big of a moment was that for you, obviously coming back down, taking that gamble to come down, and it eventually paying off?
Well, I had dropped down to a level which I thought that I was probably better than, but I was also coming nearer the end, not the end of my career, but I was getting older, certainly with it. I'd had a good career and I wanted to continue playing. But I'd also qualified as a coach really young, so I was a qualified coach when I was 21, and then I also became qualified in England as well. And I had been started to get offered quite a lot of jobs as sort of player coaches at different clubs, but I'd always said no, that I wasn't that interested. So continuing playing, and at the time when I first came down, John Beck was the manager. Gary Peters was his assistant, and you know, for everything that was said negative about John, I would say an awful lot of positives, because I think in coaching and in management, you know, you see a lot of things you like, you see a lot of things you don't like, and it was an important time for me.
And then a lot of the players that you had there as well, whether they were young or old, it kind of just seemed to work together. It seemed like Preston were pretty much on the up around that time as well.
Preston were greatly on the up, you know, and I've got to say the things the club done at the time, you know, even reserve games, they brought in all the young people, they gave tickets to the schools, they were doing everything to change it around. But probably more importantly, they had a great chairman in Derek Shaw, they had a really good owner at the time in Brian Gray, and they were all doing the right things around the club. You know, they were looking to rebuild the stadium, get rid of the AstroTurf, which I played on the last game in the AstroTurf as well, before it changed. So there was lots of that. Everything was making small improvements, and actually the team was as well. And there was a growing momentum, and obviously the year we get promoted was great. But in truth, it was only the start, and we had a lot of really good players at different periods.
You just talked about taking your coaching badges quite early on, and obviously going to England and doing them again. Was that always like an aspiration of yours to go on, and once your career ended, to move into the coaching side of things? Obviously, you know, you went from a coach to the assistant manager, then to the managerial section. Is that always an ambition?
I don't know if it was or not. I went to the coaching courses as a young coach to try and become a better player. I was desperate to become better, and that's where I probably got the bug of going, and I enjoyed the coaching. I really enjoyed being around football people, talking football, listening about it. So I would say probably every summer since I was about 18, I used to go on a coaching course. And whether it was at the time when I was really young, it was a runner, you had to do all the running for the coaches, but eventually it developed on to qualifying and becoming a fully qualified coach and a pro licensed coach as well. But I don't know if it was absolutely something I was looking to do. I think I was always in my mind probably saying maybe someone would, you know, make me the manager of the reserves, or maybe I'd be the manager of a boys club or something. I think that was probably my plans at that time.
Did you have any reservations taking a job on at Preston at that time? Obviously, starting halfway through a brand new calendar year, obviously fighting relegation at that time. Did you think this might not be the right step for you at that time?
I did, because I was still a player and I was still playing the games. And as I said, I had been getting offered a few jobs. I think I was maybe about, I don't know, you might need to check for me, maybe 32 at that time and 33. And it came around for me quite quick, and it was a decision which I was, you know, deciding, do I keep playing or what am I going to do? And I remember when Brian Gray had told me that he would like me to take the job, I said, I don't know, because the supporters were desperate. I remember the papers were full of Ian Rush and Joe Royal for the manager, and in truth they didn't want me as manager, and that was the way it was, and quite rightly so probably at the time. But thankfully the people in charge were really good people. They had a foresight, they understood what it was, they were making progress, and there was a continuation at Preston. Even if it was John Beck, Gary Peters, then it was myself, they had kept that progression, and I actually think at that period it was a really good thing to do, and obviously I still believe it was a good thing for them to do at the time.
You just talked about that kind of foundation that was set before you, and then you coming in and put your own stamp on it, went from relegation candidates all of a sudden to winning promotion in your first full season.
Yeah, it was, and I think that there was foundation had been put in. John Beck, Gary Peters done really good jobs in the foundation they put in, the types of players they brought in. We were able to add to it. We were changing it as we were going along, changing the style as we were going along as well. But there were great days, and in that period, year on year, we were always competing at the top end after we got over the relegation. And I always think of Preston, for years and years they had periods here where we were in the playoffs, round the playoffs, getting promoted. And I actually thought for a wee while the supporters were a bit spoilt, because that was a regular occurrence. But we had good players and good teams.
Just talk to us about a couple of those players, and obviously I know John Macklin was there for a season and he ended up scoring a bag full of goals. You had brought in Graham Alexander and players like that. They were some big names that went on to achieve a lot of things in football, but at that time they were just playing every week and showing what they could do.
I mean, if you go back, I couldn't probably give you them all because I couldn't do it just now, and I say, but even when you go back to people like Andy Saville and Russ Wilcox, and when we were building up, and people like Ian Bryson was always part of the club, and we had so many players who sort of helped us build through the period then. But when we were getting to the better stages, John Mackin was brought in from Manchester United, like we brought in David Healy, we had people like Michael Appleton, Graham Alexander, who we brought in from Luton, went on to be a Scottish international. We were at that time bringing in a lot of people with potential who could get better, and what it was doing in turn was improving the team.
And you went on to achieve that promotion, and then you came so close to making it back-to-back promotions. What do you remember from that day? Obviously, it wasn't the most ideal result from your point of view, but it was still a tremendous day for everyone involved at Preston.
Yeah, well, the saddest thing for me is that Preston have never made the Premier League, because the year we didn't make it, we lose in the final to Bolton. Bolton, Blackburn, Fulham all went up that year, and if I stand correct, I don't think any one of them came out of the Premier League for 10 years. And it gave you a level. Now, if you look at even now in the Premier League, the teams who come up, very few of them would stay in the Premier League for that time. So the level of the teams who went up then, Tigana was the manager of Fulham at the time, Graham Souness was the manager of Blackburn, Big Sam was the manager of Bolton, and it was really, really competitive. And we were way below in budget and all the other things, but the players done a brilliant job. And we're all still pretty close. We're all got great memories of that period. But the day we lost at Cardiff was really disappointing, because it's probably as close as we've come since then. But we had a good team, young team, and as you mentioned and alluded to, there's lots of those players going on to do really good things in football.
Would you say reaching that playoff final was probably the best part of the job, in terms of you still being one of the youngest managers around at that time, and probably being one of your most fondest memories at the club? Yeah,
for Preston it would be. I think if you're a Preston supporter, the biggest memory would be the night we beat Birmingham City. We beat Birmingham City in the playoff final on penalty kicks, and I think we all remember that. I think everybody who of an age in Preston would talk about the game, and it's still really well remembered because of the night. We were down from the first leg, we got back, we scored late on, we win it in penalty kicks. So it was a great night, and sadly probably that night was our final, when really what we had to do was beat Cardiff in the final, but to beat Bolton in the final at Cardiff. But Bolton were really strong under Big Sam at the time, and we just weren't quite able to do it on the last day of the season.
And then obviously the season after that, then you were getting touted with a lot of Premier League clubs at that point. I think you mentioned in previous interviews like Sheffield Wednesday and teams like that.
Yeah.
But how daunting was it leaving Preston after spending 9 years there as a player and in so many coaching positions, moving on to a club like Everton?
Well, it was daunting, but I had been offered quite a few jobs at my time at Preston. People had approached me and said would I be interested. A lot of teams, quite a few in the Premier League at the time, and I'd said no because I really felt as if I wanted to be loyal and get Preston up. I felt as if it was a real chance for us. The people I worked for were great, with a great support and a great crowd, and the new stadium had been built as well and was really something very good for what Preston had. So I could see great improvements there. So really the biggest club that came in for me was Everton in the end, and that made me feel that this was probably the time. And I always remember there was an old gentleman who was actually on the board at Blackpool had said to me, you know, Everton would be a great club for you, and it stuck in my brain a little bit. And when they did come for me, then I felt this might be the time to jump. And as well as that, we had lost John Macklin had left at the time, and we had lost, I think Michael Appleton had gone as well, and it was just signs that the team was breaking up because we hadn't got promoted. You know, all the other clubs were coming and plucking our best players at the time, and it was going to make doing it again for another year, or sort of getting back there, it was going to make it very difficult.
Turning to this season, and obviously Preston and just in and out of the playoff places as it stands, a fellow Scotsman in charge and Alex Neil, what kind of season do you think they've had, and have they been unlucky maybe not to be a little bit further up the division as it stands? Preston
have done great. Alex has done a brilliant job with them. They've been in and around the playoffs most of the season. They've been in, you know, before that a couple of times they've been in the top two as well. So I think for the budget what Preston have got and what they're competing against, it's a little bit the way it was in the past, where you're always having to punch a little bit above your weight. You're having to get more out of your players than maybe what other clubs can do. I think Alex has done that, and it's probably in a bit of the fashion which Preston have been. We're never going to have enough cash there to make the big difference probably. So I hope Alex can do it because nobody's got it done yet. It's been a really difficult job. Billy Davies done a really good job, Craig Brown done a good job, Paul Simpson done a good job. I could go on and on, Simon Grayson done a good job. So I think there's been a lot of people come at different times at Preston and done really good jobs with the team, but never really been able to make the Premier League.
The last question for you then is like, what does the place Preston mean for you? Obviously I know you've kind of formed an attachment with it. I know you've been awarded some doctorates and graduate degrees and stuff like that, but it's a place that they've taken you into heart and you've reciprocated as well.
Well, I think that ever since I've been there, I've been really fond of it. I've lived there and been around Preston, and you know, even when I moved on, I stayed in the area, so I know most people. But the biggest compliment I could say about was that the club have always looked after me. Whether I've been out of work, whether I've been in work, they've always treated me really well. The board, whoever the board have been, whoever the manager's been, they've always looked after me. And I think that's good that you do look after people who've been there before. And I do go back, and when I go back, they all make me feel very welcome. So they deserve an awful lot of credit, because sometimes in football that means more than many other things.